Gather close, my friends, and let the shadows draw you in. Imagine a fire crackling in the darkness, its light flickering over a tale so strange, so haunting, it feels like it belongs to another world. This is the story of Charles II of Spain, a king known to his people as El Hechizado, the Bewitched One, a ruler whose empire stretched across oceans, yet whose body and mind were so broken, his own court whispered of demons. But this isn't a ghost story, not really. It's a tragedy woven from human ambition, a dynasty's obsession, and a man who paid the ultimate price for his bloodline. So, settle in, dim the lights, and let's step into a world where power and ruin walk hand in hand, where a king's crown became his curse. Picture the Spanish court in the late 17th century, a place of gold and grandeur, where the sun never sets on the empire's reach. Ships sail from the Americas laden with silver, and the Spanish crown is a beacon of divine might. But behind the heavy velvet curtains of the royal palace, something is wrong, terribly wrong. The king who sits on this throne isn't the warrior or diplomat you'd expect. He's not even a figurehead who can muster a regal smile. Charles II is a specter, a man whose very presence unsettles those who see him. Foreign envoys arrive, expecting to bow before the ruler of half the world, but they freeze when they meet him. His jaw juts forward, a grotesque slab of bone that keeps his lips from meeting. His eyes, sunken and watery, seem to beg for something he can't name. His voice is a garbled murmur, words drowning in a throat that betrays him. And his body, oh, his body, moves like a puppet with half its strings cut, frail and unsteady, as if it might collapse under the weight of his crown. You might think this was a cruel twist of fate, a random tragedy that struck a royal cradle. But no, Charles was no accident. He was the final note in a centuries-long symphony of mistakes, played by his own family, the Habsburgs. If you know your history, you know the Habsburgs were royalty's rock stars, ruling vast swaths of Europe with unmatched power. Their secret to staying on top? Keeping it all in the family. And I don't mean loyalty, I mean marriage. Cousins wed cousins, uncles took nieces as brides, and their family tree didn't branch. It twisted, curling in on itself like a snake devouring its own tail. They believed their blood was sacred, that mixing it with outsiders would dilute their divine right to rule. So, they locked their lineage in a genetic cage, and with every generation, that cage grew tighter. By the time Charles was born in 1661, his gene pool wasn't a pool anymore. It was a stagnant puddle, murky, with the consequences of their obsession. His parents were uncle and niece, his grandparents the same on both sides. Genetically, he had less diversity than someone from an isolated island tribe, and it showed in every inch of him. His head was too large, lolling on a neck too weak to hold it. His limbs were spindly, his torso compressed as if someone had tried to sculpt a human, but gave up halfway. He didn't walk until he was 8. Most kids are racing around by 2, but Charles spent nearly a decade crawling, his legs too feeble to carry him. Even when he stood, it wasn't walking. It was a shuffle, a desperate lurch from one piece of furniture to the next. His spine curved like a question mark, hunching him forward as if the world itself was pressing down on him. Then there's that jaw, the Habsburg jaw, they called it, a badge of their lineage that grew more monstrous with each generation. Charles' lower jaw didn't just protrude, it dominated his face, a slab of bone that left his mouth hanging open like a broken gate. His teeth didn't meet. You could have slipped a coin through the gap when his lips were closed. Eating was a nightmare, a public humiliation. Palace staff mashed his food into mush, meats ground to paste, bread soaked until it dissolved, because chewing was impossible. Even then, soup dribbled down his chin, bits of food spilled out, and servants hovered like shadows, wiping his face to preserve some shred of dignity. Banquets meant to dazzle became grotesque performances, courtiers averting their eyes as their king slurped and drooled. His speech was no better. Words came out slurred, wet, like they were fighting to escape his mouth. His oversized tongue and deformed throat mangled every syllable. Foreign diplomats didn't just need translators for Spanish. They needed someone to decode Charles' version of it. His own mother, Queen Mariana, wrote in private letters that she lived in terror. He'd choke in his sleep, his airway a constant threat. Imagine that. The King of Spain, ruler of an empire where the sun never set, reduced to a choking hazard. It's heartbreaking, but it's horrifying too, because this wasn't a secret. The Habsburgs saw the deformities creeping in, jaws growing larger, bodies weakening, minds dimming, but they didn't stop. Power was worth more than their children's lives. Mentally, Charles was just as trapped. He didn't learn to read until he was 10, and even then, it was like carving words into sand. Tutors described teaching him as pouring water into a cracked jug. Nothing stuck. He'd throw tantrums over the smallest things, screaming and flailing like a toddler, only to fall into eerie silences, staring into space for hours as if his soul had wandered off. His hair came in thin, brittle patches, falling out faster than it grew, leaving his scalp blotchy and inflamed. His skin was pale, almost translucent, stretched tight over bones that seemed too fragile to hold him together. Official portraits tried to hide it, with artists using soft lighting and clever angles to paint a king who didn't exist. But the truth leaked out in whispers and diaries. One envoy called him a living ruin. Another, more corpse than man. What makes this so chilling is that Charles didn't stabilize. He deteriorated. Most people hit their stride in their teens or 20s, but his body and mind unraveled faster with every year. By his 30s, he looked like a sickly child stretched into a man's frame, barely 5 feet tall, his proportions all wrong. His massive head bobbed on a skeletal neck, his stick-like limbs barely held him upright. It was like nature was trying to erase him, and no one could stop it. Doctors tried everything, ancient remedies, cutting-edge tonics, but nothing worked. The problem wasn't a disease. It was his DNA, a ticking bomb crafted by 200 years of arrogance. Charles wasn't supposed to rule so young. His father, Philip IV, died when he was 4, leaving a toddler with a crown too heavy for his fragile head. His mother, Mariana, ruled as regent, but even she couldn't shield him from the whispers. To the court, Charles wasn't just a king, he was a problem. Spain's empire was vast, but its cracks were showing. The treasury bled from wars and mismanagement, and rivals like France and England circled, sensing weakness. Charles was a puppet, his advisors pulling strings he couldn't see, drafting decrees and waging wars in his name, while he nodded or stared, his input fleeting as a breeze. The court's biggest fear wasn't his health. It was his legacy, or lack of one. A king's first duty is to produce an heir, but Charles was a dead end. His first marriage, to Marie Louise of Orléans, was a disaster. She was young, vibrant, a French princess full of hope, but she found a husband who could barely stand. Their wedding night left her in tears, Charles confused, perhaps unaware of what was expected. Physicians confirmed the worst. His reproductive organs were underdeveloped, infantile. The court couldn't admit this, so they blamed Marie Louise, calling her barren. She endured invasive examinations, vile tonics, and rituals that made her sick. Her spirit broke, her laughter faded, and she died at 26, whispers of poison trailing her. Charles' second marriage, to Maria Anna of Neuburg, fared no better. Her horror at his condition grew, and despite her family's fertility, the marriage was barren. Europe watched, waiting. Without an heir, the Spanish throne was a prize, and France, Austria, and England were ready to fight for it. Diplomats schemed, treaties were signed, and war loomed. The Habsburgs had woven a web of marriages to keep power in the family, but that web was strangling them. Charles, their grand plan's culmination, was a king who couldn't continue the line. They bred themselves into a corner, and the world was ready to pounce. Now, let's step deeper into the shadows of Charles' world, where the air grows thick with desperation. The palace feels like a tomb, its halls echoing with the weight of an empire's decline. Charles is in his 30s now, but he's no man. He's a relic, a fading echo of royalty. His body is a wreck, his mind a fog, and the court is running out of hope. Medicine has failed, so they turn to something older, something primal, and the throne room becomes a stage for madness. The year is somewhere in the 1690s, and Charles' health is spiraling. Caesars rack him, leaving him trembling and unresponsive. His impotence is a crisis, his mind flickering out in bursts of confusion. To the court, this isn't just illness, it's unnatural. How else to explain a king so broken in a world where royalty is divine? They call him Bewitched, possessed by demons. Father Fray Alonso Diaz, the court's leading exorcist, steps forward, claiming Charles houses dozens of demons, cursed in the womb by witches. His deformities, his infertility, his suffering, all satanic. In 17th century Spain, this isn't madness, it's truth. The church holds power, and when a king fails, it's a cosmic battle. The exorcisms begin, not in secret, but as public spectacles in the palace. Charles lies on the cold stone floor, priests circling him, chanting Latin, incense choking the air. Crosses press against his chest, relics ground into his water. He drinks, gags, vomits, and the priests nod. Demons are fighting back. He shakes, sweats, collapses, and they claim another evil spirit is gone. By 1699, Diaz boasts of expelling 47 demons, each tied to a symptom: seizures, impotence, confusion. The palace itself is deemed cursed. Servants burn old gifts and furniture in courtyard bonfires, priests chanting over the flames. Nobles and dignitaries watch, torn between awe and terror. Charles, his mind dim, believes it's working. When his pain eases, he thinks the priests have saved him. He begs for more rituals, though they leave him bedridden, his body breaking further. The court indulges him, because what else is there? Doctors have failed. Marriages have failed. Hope is gone. The exorcisms give Charles a story. He's not a failure, but a victim of evil. It's a cruel comfort, but it's his only one. The empire teeters, colonies restless, treasury empty. France, Austria, and England plot, their armies ready. Charles, barely aware, is the spark for war. The court, once a government, is now an asylum, superstition replacing strategy. The truth is biology. Charles's inbred genes are a disaster, his jaw, seizures, and infertility symptoms of a strangled bloodline. But in 1697, faith trumps science, and demons are easier to blame than family. Charles is a man trapped, his court needing a symbol, his rivals a corpse, his priests a battlefield. He just wants to be whole, to feel the pain stop. The exorcisms, mad as they seem, are his cry for meaning in a life that feels empty. The court, complicit, lets them continue, unable to face their own guilt. The end is coming, and it's not just a death, it's a reckoning. Charles' final days will shake Europe, his body holding secrets that will horrify the world. Let's walk toward that final curtain, where the truth cuts deeper than any knife. The palace is a husk now, its grandeur faded, its halls heavy with dread. Charles is nearing 38, but he's no longer a man. He's a ghost, clinging to a throne that's a curse. His seizures are relentless, his eyes dull, his jaw making every breath a struggle. His stomach rejects the mush they feed him, his body bloated with unprocessed fluids. His trembling hands can't hold a quill, his legs useless. Servants carry him, his weight pitiful, his skin fragile as glass. The court is in limbo, caught between duty and fear. Exorcisms continue, but even Father Diaz's zeal wanes. Charles begs for them, his slurred voice desperate, but they only hasten his collapse, leaving him feverish, lost in delusions. The palace is a tomb, courtiers like mourners, watching a king half gone. Europe is a chessboard, Charles the final move. France, Austria, England, they're ready, treaties signed, armies poised. His lack of an heir is a bomb, and the fuse is burning. On November 1st, 1700, Charles dies, slipping away quietly at 38. No heir, no legacy, just a fractured empire and a contested will. Spain is leaderless, the vultures descending. But his body holds one last secret. The physicians, led by Dr. José de Fuente-Pirola, demand an autopsy to silence the demon rumors. They find horror instead, the report so shocking it's suppressed, but secrets leak. Charles' heart is a shriveled blackened walnut, barely a fraction of normal size, brittle as ash. His lungs are decayed, gangrenous, reeking so badly assistants flee. His intestines are putrefied, his stomach a swamp of bile and undigested food. His reproductive organs are infantile, confirming his infertility. His skull reveals the worst, fluid-filled, his brain soft, discolored, deteriorated, hydrocephalus, the cause of his seizures and dim mind. Dr. Fuente-Pirola writes, "It is a miracle. This body sustained life so long, it contained not a single sound organ. The words echo across Europe, fueling myths of curses, though it's only biology, a bloodline poisoned by inbreeding." Charles' death ignites the War of the Spanish Succession, a 13-year bloodbath. Cities burn, thousands die, borders shift, all because one king couldn't produce an heir. The Habsburgs end with him, their dream of purity a genetic suicide. Spain's empire fades, a shadow of its past. Charles is a footnote, a pitiful king, but he's more, a warning of ambition's cost. The Habsburgs saw the signs, sickly heirs, fading minds, but chased power instead. Charles paid for their sins, his body a canvas of their mistakes. His story is a mirror, reflecting what happens when we trade humanity for pride. Thanks for walking this dark path with me on Grim Chronicles. If Charles's tale stirred you, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment. Tell me what royal secrets or hidden histories you want to uncover next. The past is full of shadows, and we're here to shine a light on them. Until next time, keep your eyes open. The truth is always waiting.